I was teaching a class at our mission and drew a diagram of two stick figures on a chalkboard. If this person has money and decides to give it to this other one, what's this called? They got it right. Charity. I drew a third stick figure. We'll call this person Uncle Gov. If he takes it from this person and gives it to the other, what's that called? I expected the response welfare, but one student, Keith, immediately blurted out, "That's a felony." Well, we all laughed at Keith's quick wit that day, but the government's power to take what one person earned and give it to another is no laughing matter, and it's anything but charitable. True charity is authentic. It's rooted in compassion, not compulsion. Charity rooted in compassion is built on personal relationships, something that government relief just can't achieve. In 1794, James Madison said, "Charity is no part of the legislative duty of the government." Given that he is the very author of our Constitution, it's baffling that his own interpretation has been greatly ignored. After all, 48% of poverty-fighting nonprofits today receive government funding alongside scores of government-operated programs that provide relief for the poor. Should charity be the role of government or that of people like you and me? Had 19th century French economist Frédéric Bastiat been sitting in my class that day, he would have cheered Keith's insight. In his short book, The Law, Bastiat identifies state-coerced transfer of one's property to another as legalized plunder. To determine legalized plunder, he said, "See if the law takes from some persons what belongs to them and gives it to other persons to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen by doing what the citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime." A crime? Was Keith right? Why does it seem inherently wrong to take what belongs to one person and give it to another? Because what belongs to someone is his private property, and private property is a part of someone's life. Even my 3-year-old grandson understands this. When we saw a nest crafted from twigs, leaves, and mud, I asked, "Whose nest is this?" "The bird's," he said. Yes, it's the bird's nest, just like it's the spider's web, the beaver's dam, and so on. Why? Because they built it. My young grandson, and most of us, inherently understand what English philosopher John Locke pointed out in 1767, that whatever a person has mixed his labor with has joined to it something that is his own, and thereby makes it his property. When you and I spend a part of our life working for something, we translate our labor into property, whether that be building a nest or earning a paycheck. Property, no less personal and private than the time of our lives we spent to acquire it. No wonder Madison said charity is no part of the legislative duty of the government. Redistributing the wealth of taxpayers to help the poor does nothing for the general welfare, but only the welfare of some. And even that is arguable. Which brings me to a second question. Does government charity even work? I've been researching the outcomes of our government's efforts to help the poor over the last 50 years. Specifically, I wanted to know how much the federal government has spent in each of those years to help the poor across 4 areas: food, housing, cash assistance, and Medicaid. So, how much did we spend in today's dollars per poor person in 1964? $1,168. How about 1969, again in today's dollars? $2,545. And in 1974, $4,804. Each year, we spent more on every poor person, providing more relief through the creation of new programs and increased distributions from existing ones. And that trend hasn't stopped. Today, we spend an average of $16,843 taxpayer dollars on every poor person, and that's just in those 4 programs. That's concerning. Unless we've discovered the more government money we spend helping the poor, the less number of poor people we have. In other words, if it's solving the problem, at least there's some justification for the increased spending. But when we look at the poverty rate along our timeline, it's obvious there's no positive correlation between government spending and resolving poverty. In fact, the argument could be made that government aid is trapping the poor, keeping them right where they are. How can we liberate people trapped in poverty? Through charity that is authentic, real compassion, personal involvement, one relationship at a time. It's the work of private charity. The government shouldn't do it, and the government can't do it. It's a job for you and me. This is James Whitford with the True Charity Initiative, reminding you that True Charity is voluntarily funded. To find out more, visit truecharity.us.